thanks for coming by and stopping at my channel. Today I am going to be making or giving a tutorial for this little envelope, I don't know, folder, organizer, pocket thingy. I teach school and there are times where I need to go to a meeting or cover a class and I want to bring some things and have with me. And so I made this 1-inch wide organizer that has a post-it note holder and a pen holder so that everything is confined to this area. I can attach my clips here. I can still see what's inside because the front's a little bit lower than the back. And like I said, it's only 1 inch thick, but it'll work for my purpose. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing is I use some old hanging file folders and cut off the tops. And so the first thing is to cut it so that it's 8 3/4 inches tall. So let me just double check my measurements. It should be already cut. Now folders are not absolutely cut straight, so you might need to be careful and just make sure everything is nice and straight and even. So yep, 8 3/4. Okay, so then I am going to fold it so that I have this 1 inch bottom. Okay, so I have the score marks that are already in the folder and I folded it on the last one, so I have a 1 inch bottom, and we're going to add 1 inch sides. So now the front, now mine looks different than what yours will. It would have been a little bit taller, but I wanted a tab, so I used my tab punch board that I just got, and I cut a tab on the right hand side, and then I cut off the excess to the left of that. Okay, you could do a middle one, you could do a left hand side one, it doesn't matter, but this is the tool I used to get that. Okay, so now to make it look a little bit nicer, I am going to corner round, and this will be covered, so I thought this would make it a little bit more durable than just using cardstock. And I'm going to go ahead and corner around this front one too. Okay, so that's the basis of our folder. Now we can go ahead and do some covering, or matting of paper. And then we'll do the side. We cannot put anything on the inside yet, but we can do the bottom and the front and the back with our cardstock. So you might want a piece of paper handy or a notebook. Stop the video once in a while. I don't have anything written down. You can just kind of, yours might be actually a little bit different depending on your file folder anyway. So the first thing I did is I cut this tab separate for contrast purposes because this is a different paper than what I'm going to put on the front. I also didn't ink anything. So I'm going to go ahead and glue my tab on first, and there will be a little bit of a space between my tab and then the paper that I chose for the front. And that's just how I wanted it. You can do it however you want, but this will fit perfectly on here. Okay, and I'm just gonna make sure that's on. So if you are doing your paper or your folder like I am, this is now 7 inches, I believe. Yeah, mine is now 7 inches now that I've cut off that excess. So this is the paper I'm going to use. My folder is 11 3/4 inches wide. So I'm going to cut my paper at 11 5/8 wide. And rather than it being 7 inches tall, it's 6 5/8. Okay. I am going to corner round this corner. Like I said, I am not doing any inking because it's going to get wear and tear at school. And then I'm going to glue that on. I love that paper. So I'm just going to lather this up. So it was 11 5/8 long because my folder was 11 3/4. and mine was 7 inches tall, so I went 6 5/8. And this is going to be really handy, I think, even not just if you're a school teacher, I mean a business, if you want to make several of them and organize by the day or something. You might not need all the attachments like the Post-it note holder and the pen holder, but okay, so I'm going to place this on the front. Push this down, make it easier to line up. And a little bit of a gap there, that's what I want. And then I'm going to burnish it real well just to make sure it's stuck on there nice. This paper is the Life is Beautiful by Country Craft Creations, and it's still for sale on the website, countrycraftcreations.com. Spread that glue out. Just make sure the corners are real good and stuck. Okay. So I want this to be nice and bright and bold. So now I'm going to do the back. And I'm going to use this for the back. So again, it's 11 3/4 wide. So that's 11 5/8. And now the back was 8 1/2. No, that's not true. 8 3/4. What was it? I don't remember now. It was 8 3/4. So now I did 8 5/8. I'll go ahead and corner round. I just think it's easier to cover the project before you have that thickness from the 1-inch sides. Doing a dry fit first, and it works. So let's go ahead and lather this one up with some glue, especially around the edges. Don't get too close to the edge though, that you'll have all that glue squirting out when you burnish it. I like the saying on this paper and I wanted to use it, but I thought it was a little bit too busy with what I chose for the front. I like the saying on here. It says, start each day with a grateful heart. This is really versatile paper too. I've used it for so many projects, planners, cards, altered notebooks, traveler's notebooks. I love it. All right, I think that's good. And let's line it up. And that looks about right. So you are going to need chipboard for this project. Not very much, but I wanted this to be durable. So I did add some chipboard pieces. I'll give you those measurements in a second here. So I'm going to go ahead, I haven't cut it yet. I'm going to go ahead and put a 1-inch, this is 1 inch, so I'll cut it at 7/8 and 11 5/8. And not that you're going to see the bottom really, but I think I want it to match the front. So I'm going to use this and cut it at 7/8. Let's just kind of do a dry fit here and see. Oh, that even lined up. Perfect. And it's mine was already cut to the right width of 11 5/8. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. Come on, glue. I might need to transfer to another bottle. Even though you don't see the bottom, it still has to look nice, right? I am going to take a little bit of a shortcut on the inside with the paper, just because I was running low, but when I get there, I'll give you the actual measurement, and then you can decide how you want to do it. Okay, go ahead and burnish that. Dry wet wipe to get that excess glue that comes out. All right, so that's what we can do right now for covering the actual folder. I'm going to go ahead and give you your first measurement for chipboard, and it's just a 7/8 inch wide by, now I did not go the full length because when we put the sides on, that's chipboard also, and I don't want the chipboard pieces to bump into one another. So I made mine, I think 11.5. Let me check. Yep, so I made it 11.5 by 7/8, and I put adhesive on the back, and I'm just gonna glue that down so that I have the same amount of space on about 1/8 of an inch on each side. Okay, so I'm gonna turn it this way just because it's easier for me to glue it that way. So 11.5 by 7/8. I have a heck of a time getting this backing off the tape. I hate this red line, but I had some that I needed to use. It drives me insane. All right. So the reason why it's 7/8 and not 1 is just because we need a little bit of give, or, you know, a little, we don't want it to block the closing of this pocket. Let me check. Yep. Lift them up to make sure. Yep, it's good. So now you can burnish that. Okay, now I do want to cover that with paper. Oopsie. So I have one cut. So this is an 11.5 long. And there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now just because it's easier to do it before we attach our side pieces. Oh, this glue. I can feel it. There's still quite a bit in there, but when you use these bigger bottles, it takes longer to get it to reach the bottom to come out. Alrighty. Again, I like to be generous on the glue there. Okay. So that's what we can do right now. So I'm going to set this off to the side. You're going to need 2 more pieces of chipboard that measure 1 inch by, now mine was 7 inches tall. So I did mine at 7 inches. This is because you don't want it to go higher than the front. And don't count that. So I measured from down here to the top, and mine was 7 inches. So I just want to double check that I have the right height before I go to all that work. And it's just a hair taller. Let's see, because I corner rounded. I think that might, do I like that or no? I think it'll be okay. All right, so 1 inch by however tall the front is. Put adhesive on the back. You're going to need 2 of those. And we are going to end up working with it so it looks like this. I've done one just to kind of save some time. You'll need 2 pieces of paper that measure 4 inches by 9. That's if yours is 7 inches long. Okay, 4 by 9. So these are the attachment pieces. So if you're used to making an album, you know that we have a little bit of extra wing space on the side. So I use these as a guide. This is a 1.5 inch. This is a 1 inch. These can be purchased at Country Craft Creations also. You place the paper underneath here, and it will give you exactly where you need to place your chipboard. Okay, so make sure it's in there. Oh, that's not the side to do. I want this, the wrong side should face up. I'd have been so mad at myself. So I'm going to take the backing off. And you can use glue if you want, but I prefer on like major construction pieces, I like to use the score tape. And I also kind of sometimes use a combination, some glue on top of the score tape. So we're just going to butt this up against both of these so we know exactly where to place it. Okay, do that to both pieces of chipboard. So go ahead and fold over your chipboard on all four sides and give it a light burnish. Okay, so I like to get rid of some of the bulk. So there is a rectangle where the two score lines met. I'm going to cut off at an angle and take off a triangle. Okay, the other rectangle, do the same thing. So it looks like that. You have a little trapezoid at the end. When you use pattern paper, it's harder to see where that line is or that fold. I'm going to turn it the other way so I can see it better. Okay. This is just like how we wrap an album with the lay flat method, this part is. All right, so what I want to do now is bring up just the bottom and the top and leave the sides open. For this, I'll just use glue. I'm going to put a little bit of glue on either side of that chipboard, about 1/2 inch worth, all the way across the bottom of it here, and then fill this in with glue, the trapezoid section. Bring that up and over the chipboard. Push it down so that it goes up against the chipboard, that glue that we put down, and then burnish that. Same with the other side. Push it up against that chipboard and burnish. Okay, do the other side the same way. Glue on the end of the chipboard and a little bit on each side. Fill in the end part. And okay, so now I do trim and miter a little bit on each side here. So the slight triangle from the chipboard over to the edge, just a real skinny triangle comes off. I'm just resting my scissors on that chipboard. Okay, so you have just a slight angle. Again, you're doing that with both of your side pieces. And I am just going to lightly push the paper up against the chipboard on the opposite side here. Okay, I am going to put some adhesive on. I'm actually going to use like this stupid red tape. It just is so time consuming cutting it, and the red stuff, the backing sticks to you. So I'm just going to put 2 strips. Now this is one of the times I'm going to use both the combination here of the tape and glue. So I'm just going to put 2, is this 1/2 inch? Yeah, this is 1/2 inch. Do the same on the other wing. and then we're going to burnish it real well. Alrighty, so now what we want to do is glue a piece of the paper onto the piece of chipboard so that we don't see that raw chipboard when we're looking in our little envelope. Okay, glue that down. Alrighty. So out of everything that we do, this will be the most tricky, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not hard, but we just want to make sure we line everything up. So let me show you on the original one. We want to get as close, when we attach this, we want to make sure that it's as flush with our folder as possible. This one worked out pretty well. I'm hoping the same will be true of this one. So let's grab our folder. Okay, and we're going to attach the first piece and make sure it goes all the way to the edge. Can you see that? Like so. Now that's why we left a little bit of space here too, because when we stand it up, they might bump into each other. So this is important to line it up. You don't want your folder to be uneven. So I'm just going to take off the backing of one side of my spine piece or my side pieces. I am going to use some glue that just kind of gives me some wiggle room time. Okay, the moment of truth. I'm going to fold it over and I'm going to bump it up against. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and burnish that down. Mine's a little bit over actually. That's okay. And now let's do the other side. Just take the backing off of one of the wings. And we'll do the same. We'll add a little bit of glue to give us some time or some wiggle space. And I needed it on the last one. All right, so I'm going to tuck it under so it's easier for me to see if it's on the end. That went over a little bit. It's going to have to stay there. I did not line it up as well as I did on the other project, but that's the way it goes. So let me show you how this one went over just a hair. See, just a little bit. That's okay. It's going to have to be because I'm not redoing it. Okay, so now I'm getting a tool ready so I can get down in there to burnish. I'm going to take off the backing of one side. This is the part that you have to, that it can be tricky, I think. Oh, this red stuff. I don't know how people, I mean, I used to use it all the time, but then I was introduced to score tape and whew, way better. Okay, let's put a little bit of glue on here. Okay, so I'm going to do it very lightly. I'm going to stand it up so I can see it. Okay. And I'm going to take this little tool and slide it in there. That actually is not even really that long. I'm going to just use my hand. And we're going to have paper covering that piece too. So, all right, so that's what my side looks like. That's pretty good. It's not horrible. And now the other one. And then we'll move on to the pencil holder or the sliding box and the Post-it note. And those I'll have you decorate. I'm not going to decorate those on camera. I will tell you though, on the slider box, we have to be careful because if you decorate the outsides, it becomes too thick and too big to slide into your base. So I've learned that the hard way. Unless you make the base a little bit bigger. Okay, so now I gotta stick that underneath, line it up at the bottom. It's not terrible. Just taking my hand in there to make sure it's gonna stick. Okay, sides are done. Woohoo! So this is where I'm going to take a little bit of a cheating route. You don't have to do this, but I don't have enough paper. So you could put paper all the way down on the back. Mine's not big enough. So I just did whatever I had left. So this is actually 6 inches. So it doesn't go all the way down to the bottom. That doesn't bother me. If it bothers you, then make sure you do yours longer. I'm going to go ahead and corner around the top. And let's get some glue on here. Now I am going to put some paper behind the front too, and that is just for sturdiness. The more paper you add, the thicker and more strong it becomes. That's probably an annoying sound on camera, all that gluing. I'm going to stand it up so I can make sure I'm putting it in the right spot. So we are covering those hinges a little bit, which is helpful. Just using my hand, it's easier to get my hand inside of here to push it down. So let's see what I have extra paper of, because I don't want to waste, and I may not even, just like the back, I might not go all the way to the bottom of the front, but I want it to be stronger. So let me find, you know what? I might as well just use this. Yeah, is it already at 11? Yep. So I'll just use this. I'm going to have to corner around this corner right here. And this piece is actually only about 4 1/4 or 4. And I'm going to just tuck that in and glue it down for stability. And then the folder part is done. The pocket, the organizer part's done. Now everything that I'm doing, you could actually do with cardstock too, you know, like instead of using file folders. It's because I'm going to actually use the file folder for making the, hold on, I gotta concentrate here. Okay. I'm going to use the file folders for the construction of the Post-it note and the sliding box pencil holder too. All right, so that just makes it a little bit more sturdy. So I'm going to set this to the side. Let's go ahead and do the let's do the sliding box next. So I am using the old file folders. Let me give you the measurements. I can put that away. No, I can't. I still need it. Let me get a drink real quick. Hold on. Okay, pencil holder, you need 2 pieces, 3 by 7.5. And this is 6.5 by 6.5. Okay. And this won't be, you won't see this, so. All right, so let's take the 3 by 7.5 and just go around all 4 sides at a 1/2 inch. So score half, turn it, half, turn it, half, turn it. So all 4 sides. Let's go ahead and burnish on our score marks. Okay, so we're going to cut up on the score as straight as possible. I like to get on the inside of that bump. And then we're going to angle that square slightly. Okay, so I angled it slightly. Same on the other one. You don't have to do it much. And we're going to do the same thing to the opposite end. Cut up to the score line. Angle, angle. All right, so this is the part where you have to be careful, because if it gets too thick, it won't slide into your holder. So I did, when I worked with this one, I covered all of the inside and the 2 ends, but that was it. I didn't put any on the outside because I was worried that it wouldn't slide correctly, and that would be a bummer. Okay, so if it's easier for you, you can put your pattern paper on. You know what, I think I might do that. Oh, I'll go back and do it later, that's fine. I'm going to go ahead and put some glue. I'm going to get some clips to hold it. Okay, so we're going to put glue on these 2 tabs on the outside here. And we're going to tuck it behind the end piece, and I want to make sure it's lined up real good. And I need another hand, so I'm going to use this clip. And now I need to line up the other side, make sure that is a good corner. And I see a little excess here. I'll have to fix that later. And let's go to the opposite end and do the same thing. Let's put glue on both tabs at the same time. It just kind of helps to knock it out at the same. I'm going to bring both of them in on this end at the same time, just making sure I pay close attention to the corners. Okay. And then you can, like I said, I did all of the inside with pattern paper and just the two short ends on the outside. So that's the part where you're going to place your pencils and pens or whatever, okay? So I'm gonna leave you to decorate that on your own. Let's do the slider base. This is 6.5 by 6.5. So we're gonna do several score marks. So the first one is at 1 1/4. 1 1/4. The second one is 1 3/4. 1 1/4, 1 3/4. Now this section here will be glued to the pocket, so it's okay if you know it's ugly and you're not going to cover it. Go over to the next score, which is 3 7/8. 3 7/8. And the last one is 4 3/8. 4 3/8. So I'll say that again so you can write them down if you want. 1 1/4, 1 3/4, 3 7/8, 4 3/8. Okay, let's burnish our score marks. Fibbed. It's this piece that you won't see. Okay. So it will end up coming together like this, and this is the part that's going to be glued down, okay? So I'm going to fold this back so you just see that first 1 1/4 inch section, and then I'm going to glue this down. I am going to trim just a hair off so it doesn't hang over. Just a little bit, you don't need much. Okay, and then I'll just bring this over and glue that shut. This would be good to probably paper before you glue it, but to make the video shorter, I'll do it after. And like I said, this will be glued to the bottom. So bring that over. So here's my 1/2 inch right here, and then there's the last piece that was bigger. And you're going to want to make sure that you check to make sure it fits. I do see where I might have a couple that I don't know if I didn't cut it straight. But, oh yeah, it fits, okay? So I'll decorate that later. You will add adhesive on the back, and I glued mine in the center about 1.5 inches up from the bottom. Just put adhesive on the back, okay? So there's that. And now all we have left is the Post-it note holder. This piece is 5 1/4 by 8. 5 1/4 by 8. Okay, this is what we're looking to get to. Sometimes it helps to see that before we get started. All right, so put the 5 1/4. So it's, I don't know if I said 5 1/2, but it's 5 1/4. 5 1/4 by 8. Place your 5 1/4 inches across the top, score at 1/2 and 1. Turn it around, still have the 5 1/4 at the top, 1/2 and 1. Turn it so that your 8 inches is across the top, and here are your score marks. 2 3/8, oh wait, hold on, that's the wrong side. 2 3/8, and this is for a sticky notepad like this, for that width, okay? If you have a thicker sticky note, you might have to adjust your measurements. So 2 3/8 and 2 3/4. Come down to 5 3/4 and score, and 6 1/8 and score. So the larger part is going to be the front. This shorter section is actually the flip top lid, okay? So what I'm going to do is burnish my score marks a little bit here, just so I can kind of visualize what I'm doing. And we're going to do some cutting. So this is where this comes in handy. We are going to cut the two, hold on. Ooh, I almost told you the wrong thing. We're going to cut off the two scores on the right and left hand side. You know how we did it at 1/2 and 1. We are going to cut that off until we get to the 3rd score line down. So notice I did not cut past the 3rd score line, 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to cut this off. Now I like a straight line, so I'm going to use my cutter, and I'll do that right now. All right. Don't like that little hangy thing there. Okay, so that's where we're at so far. Might as well go ahead and corner around this while I'm thinking of it. So I corner around the right end. Okay, so now we are going to take out, well, let's go ahead and cut on the score straight across. So we have this released, 2 little squares. Don't cut it off yet. Okay, we're going to take off the outside square on each side. So now this is what you have. We're going to slightly angle. I didn't cut a little extra off here. Slightly taper. So you're taking off just a little bit of a triangle on either side of that tab. And on the other one too. So that's where we're at so far. So we're getting there. So now let's take a look at the outside score marks. The 1/2 inch on the outside, we are going to slightly miter at an angle here and here. Slightly angle, so it looks like a tab, just on that outer 1/2 inch. Now, I am not going to put this one together until I put pattern paper on, just because it's way easier. But there are some parts that you cannot paper ahead of time. Let me finish burnishing. Hold on. So if you flip it over, you can cover the front and then that 1/2 inch that's on either side of the large middle section. So this is the front, these are the two sides. You don't need any paper on the outsides where we angled. Okay, I would do that before I put it together. You don't need any paper here because it'll be glued to the pocket. You can cover the flap, the edge here, and you can also do it underneath. Okay, front and inside of the flap and the little gusset. Don't do anything on the inside here. Okay, what you're going to do then is you're going to glue. I like these little tabs just because it helps it line up nicer. You're going to glue that 1/2 inch piece like so. So just put glue on that 1/2 inch and put a little bit of glue on your tab. Bring it over. So it's going to end up a little box. That looks like this. Okay. Then before you attach it to your pocket, you're going to want to put some seam binding or a piece of ribbon on the back before you glue it down, so you can tie it to use that as a closure, or if you want to use magnets, you can. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and finish the pattern paper. I don't put a whole lot of embellishments just because it's a little bit more realistic for me not to have as much bulk, because I'm going to use this at school. And then I'll add pictures at the end. Okay, so if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope this was an easy project, and I hope it's one that you can actually use. I mean, I hope it's something that's going to be handy for you. Okay, all right, I'll be back with pictures.